Welcome to our May Clarity Spotlight video. At the beginning of the year, we focused on clarity of learning intentions and success criteria by asking the three questions: what are you learning, why, and how do you know you're successful? The past couple of months, some of us have been focusing on clarity about what makes a skillful learner by asking the questions: what do good learners do, and what do you do when you get stuck in your own learning? Check out these three examples of clarity on what makes a skillful learner in this month's Spotlight. The first one comes to us from Maddie Packold's Pathways class. Maddie asked her students about what success looks like in school. She coded all of their answers and noticed that most of them were behaviors. So she wrote the word student on top of that category. Then a student said, well, I cannot follow all of those and still do well in school. Like, I can be late and still get good grades. So Maddie said, interesting. Sounds like we need to talk about what makes someone a good learner. And the students came up with the list on the right. A good learner asks questions, listens, is engaged, participates, is able to accept criticism and seeks feedback, gets help from teachers, aides, peers when needed, sets goals for themselves, and finds interest in the work that they are doing. So when answering the question, what do good learners do? When it comes to clarity, we're hoping that students answer with the multitude of learner dispositions as Maddie's class was able to come up with on the list on the right. Another example of focusing on clarity about what makes a skillful learner comes to us from Chris Butt's history class. Here, Chris asks his students to reflect on how their skills grew when they reflect at the end of a unit. He does this by asking these four questions. What skills did you develop the most? What's your evidence? What skill should you grow next? And why is that? You can see from this student example, she picked that her skill she worked on the most was verbally sharing in a summary, and she provided evidence for how she knew she developed that one. And she picked a new one to concentrate on, and that was taking notes, and she stated why. This example of how students are assessing on what good learners do by focusing in on the skills they practice while learning and applying the knowledge in class is a great example of how we can have our kids become more involved and take ownership of their learning. Chris also states that he provided the students and himself an opportunity to acknowledge and celebrate the results of their efforts in his class. He said it supplied an idea of how to move them forward and what scaffolds they might need. He also said that students were setting their own goals, and in the future he hopes to go back and reflect on those unit goals by looking at the previous unit and reflect on whether or not they focused on that next skill that they chose. Next up, we have the learning pit. In Michelle Peterson's class, here's what Michelle states about using the learning pit as part of her senior project. We are using the learning pit in order to help students identify what being a learner in the real world will entail and a toolbox of ideas to get unstuck when you don't have a teacher handy. I want students to visually see the progression of learning and be able to identify when they are frustrated or they want to give up. This helps us show students that progression of what do you do when you get stuck in your own learning, that they are provided the skills and resources to know what that looks like, and then to be able to utilize them to move on forward. Clarity isn't just about learning intentions and success criteria. Clarity is about helping our students own their education and own what they're learning in their classes. If you'd like more information about clarity, I highly recommend you join the 12 of us in the Learning Summit on May 31st and June 1st. And I appreciate all of your help in helping build clarity as a culture of learning here at Frank Church, and I appreciate you